guys, so first things first, I want to make sure that you remember that the annotating was due last night, but if for some reason you did not get it in, you need to talk to me so that we can get that taken care of, okay? So today's objective is we're going to begin mastering the STAAR persuasive writing process. This is an extremely important skill to learn because you guys are taking the English II STAAR this year. Last year you guys got lucky and they canceled STAAR, but this year we're pushing ahead with it. So one of the biggest aspects of that test is the writing component, okay? So I really need you guys to pay attention. If you have tech, take notes in your, like in a Word document or in your OneNote notebook. Make sure you're taking those notes, okay? So today we're going to do a Unit 2 topics recap as always so that you guys are going to be prepared whenever you do have a test. And then we're going to start the STAAR persuasive writing process. So first things first, what's a bias? What's a bias, guys?
An opinion.
An opinion based on? Personal experiences, right? And it influences everything that we do. Are all biases bad? No, right? What about racism? It is a bias, but not all biases are racist. Okay, biases appear on a spectrum. What are the two of the ends? Liberal and conservative, left, right? And then we have the middle, which is moderate, right? Now, when we're researching a topic, do we want to just look for everything that's down the middle? No, you want to have a balanced news diet about that topic so that you get a better understanding of the entire topic as a whole. Okay, why is it important to acknowledge our biases?
Sorry, what do you say?
Why is it important to acknowledge our bias? Or to know that we have biases? Because if I know about them, I can try to avoid them, right? And dealing with other people, maybe I can be more open, right? So as a teacher, it's really important for me to acknowledge my biases, know what they are, so that I can avoid them when dealing with my students, right? All right, so we have biases. And biases do affect our reasoning, but we have something called logical reasoning. What is logical reasoning? The way we think. Yes, there's two types. What types are they? Inductive and deductive. So remember, inductive, we start with specific evidence and we go to a general conclusion. So our deductive is the opposite way, right? We create a general conclusion and find the evidence to support that. One of the ways we do that is through one way of thinking. What is it? Inferencing, yes. Basically, the author implies and the reader infers. We pick up the clues and we figure out what's going on. We also use that in everyday life, right? So if we see some good kids at the end of the hallway screaming at each other and getting in each other's faces, I can infer what? There's about to be a fight, right? We use it all the time. Sometimes you walk into a room and your parents are in a bad mood and you can just kind of feel that. There's just certain ways that they stand or talk that you're like, oh, I better tread lightly, right? We're using inferencing. Okay, so with logical reasoning, not only can you use that when you're reading and in everyday life, but you kind of use it to help you with your own arguments. But when you create an argument, you have to be careful of logical fallacies, which are unsubstantiated arguments. So that means that they are arguments or stances that don't necessarily have enough facts to support them. They might have some facts, but not necessarily enough. Okay, so what's one of the common ones used? Cherry picking, right? We see it in ads, and sometimes we do it in our own life, where you kind of just pick the information you want to share so that people can be on your side. What's the most petty? Ad hominem, because that's an attack on the person, not even on the argument itself, it's just the person, right? Okay, so we learn about logical fallacies not only so that we can identify them in other people's arguments, but we can avoid them in our own, right? But in our own arguments, we also want to make sure we have what type of appeals? Rhetorical. Yeah, rhetorical appeals, okay? So we have biases, logical reasoning. Okay. And we have logical fallacies. And then we have rhetorical appeals. And rhetorical means to, you guys remember? What does rhetorical mean? To persuade. So there are appeals that persuade you to be on their side or to do what they want you to. What three are there? Ethos, pathos, logos. Ethos appeals to the credibility. And I get credibility through my accomplishments, my background, right? The terminologies I use. If I use terminology that's specific to that field or that subject, you're more likely to believe me. Pathos appeals to the emotions. It's the easiest one, right? Okay. How do I appeal to pathos?
Songs, sad songs.
Sounds, images, powerful words, right? Logos appeals to my logic, right? Which is the way of thinking. So you're gonna appeal to that through what?
Facts and statistics.
Facts and statistics, right? And so, and personal experiences that I have firsthand knowledge of, those are considered facts, right? But that is different than saying, well, so-and-so said, right? That's not as credible. Okay. Any questions about these? Okay. Then we also talked about social reforms. What are social reforms?
A way to try to fix
Social. Yes.
Yeah.
So social reforms try to fix social issues. They may not solve it, but they try to fix it. Are they short-sighted? Does it happen real fast? No, they tend to be long, right? Most of them tend to be long. Okay. And then we also talked about social media. What do we consider social media?
What do you mean?
What platforms?
Instagram,
Instagram, Twitter, right? And right now, these two are closely tied together, right? Because we use social media to help spread information about social reform. Or you can do the opposite where you can try to undermine a social reform, right? Is all the information I get from social media accurate? No. So if you see something, we should really check into it, right? Okay. So that's basically all the stuff you've learned within these past couple of weeks, which is actually a lot, right? So now we're going to actually move on to the writing process and try to put everything together. So when you're actually in Schoology, it's going to be a little different with the writing process, okay? Normally, you guys would just go to the lesson here in Schoology, right? Under your day. But because the writing spans the entire year, it's going to have its own folder. But just in case you guys get lost, you can click on this and I'll show you where you're supposed to go, okay? So this is going to be on your main page. It's STAAR Persuasive Writing 2020-2021. And then there's an actual lesson, okay? So if you get lost, you'll still see that. So basically, you're going to go back over here to materials. And it's going to be right here. And I put it before everything because that's how important it is. All right, any questions on that? All right. So there is a lot of information here, but a lot of this information we cover in this lesson, so no worries. And this lesson will span a couple of days. I know this is how most of you feel when it comes to writing. I like to write, and even when it comes to test writing, that's how I feel. So in order to get you ready for the English II EOC STAAR exam in the spring, I want to get you started early on practicing the persuasive writing process. Over the next few days, we will work step by step to create a complete persuasive essays. It is important that you have a strong understanding of this process so you can make sure you ask questions if you have any questions. I know that's a little redundant, but ask questions if you have questions, right? Don't ever be afraid to ask me a question. I don't believe there's anything as a stupid question. Some of the questions can be a little silly, but I'll still answer them, okay? Any questions on that? Okay, so the STAAR English II EOC Writing Rubric. So everything that you write for the English II STAAR is graded off of a rubric. And you can get up to 4 points, okay? They're very specific. The process that I have developed for you to use to write is very specific to the STAAR to get you the maximum amount of points. Because in reality, if you do not pass the writing portion of your STAAR, it's very hard to pass the STAAR, okay? And you have to pass it in order to graduate, okay? They don't care if I say, oh, he's really smart, he's just not a good test taker, you know, she's an amazing writer, you just didn't see it. They don't care what Ms. Garcia has to say, they care about the score that you get on the writing, okay? So it's broken up into these categories, and I have uploaded the actual PDF within this folder, so you can review it on your own. But we're actually going to use this rubric for the rest of the year. This is what I use to grade everything you write. So there's not going to be any switch ups, no changes, no Ms. Garcia, I didn't know. This is going to be the rubric for the rest of the year. Sound fair?
Yeah.
All right, I'm all about trying to be consistent because the world is a little chaotic. We all need some consistency. So we'll go over that a little bit more in depth in a little bit. So the writing process, I've broken it into sections. Now at the end of this lesson, I have provided the entire presentation as in its entirety, but it's pretty long, so that's why I broke it up. Here's what I need you to do. There are no questions in the actual Nearpod, but I want to make sure you go through the process on your own. So you do need to put your first and last name and join, because I can see who has looked at the Nearpod, and I will give you credit for having looked at it, okay? That's how important it is. So let's go ahead and put my name. All right. So the persuasive writing process, mastering the English II STAAR writing requirement. And it very much is a requirement. So first and foremost, in the state of Texas, all English II students are required to complete the English II EOC STAAR. The test is normally given during the spring semester of your English II class, unless you fail it. So here's what happens if you fail. You're still required to continue to take it. So let's say you fail it this spring, which hopefully if you pay attention, you will not. You'll pass it and it'll be beautiful. Ms. Garcia will be excited. Okay, but if you fail, you have the option to take it in the summer. Let's say you take it in the summer, you fail again, then you have an option in the fall, spring, summer, fall. So literally you can take this test, like I've seen some kids that have taken it 10 times. Okay, so you have to pass it to be able to graduate. So it's very important. So the test is comprised of 3 sections: the reading, editing, and writing. So right now we're going to be focusing on this, and I'm introducing it to you now because from now on there will be a lot of writing in this class, so that by the time the STAAR comes, it's going to be like, I already know how to do that. Right? Like, it's no big deal. Same thing with reading. We're going to be doing a lot of reading because I'm not going to lie to you. The reading section of the STAAR is probably the most boring passages in the world. I don't know if that is the requirement for the STAAR, but I feel like they literally go search out the most boring text alive, and that's what we're going to use. So I need to get you used to reading and reading strategies that will make it easier for you. Because if it's even kind of boring for me, and I actually love to read, I can only imagine what it would be for you guys. And editing, we're going to start that probably next week or the week after, where I'm going to have editing practices that you'll do at the first 5-10 minutes of class, and so by the time you get to the STAAR, that's gonna be a breeze for you too. Okay, so I make it hard for you in class, so by the time that you get to the test, that test is nothing. Does that make sense? Okay. So to pass, students must achieve at least a 3775 score on the test. To achieve a passing score, it is important that students do well on the writing portion. You cannot get a 3775 if you bomb the writing. Okay. So that's why I'm really stressing it. Any questions on that?
No.
Again, here's the writing rubric. The writing portion is scored on a scale of 1 to 4 and is rated by 2 graders. Therefore, the highest score you can achieve is an A. Unless you leave the writing portion blank, you will start at a 2 because you will always start here. I'm not gonna lie, I've actually had a student that put a happy face on his STAAR. Because I can see what you write, by the way. After I get the results, I see what you write. And I had a student that put a happy face, and he still scored a 2. Okay? So in reality, you guys, as long as you write something, you already have a 2. It's only if you leave it blank that you'll get a 0. All right? But it's pretty simple. It's broken down, and I said, like, so here, you get a 1 if you have no thesis. If you just ramble, and it's like incoherent, they can't understand it, but it's jumping all around, right? I once saw one where they went on some tangent about when they found a dog one time. It had nothing to do with the prompt whatsoever. They still got a 2, right? As long as you write, but as long as you have a thesis, even if it's a weak thesis, you started at 2. So that gets you a 4. So just a thesis alone gets you halfway there, right? And how many sentences is a thesis? 1. By having 1 coherent sentence that tells you what's going to happen, what you're going to talk about in that actual paper, you automatically get a 2. That's pretty easy, right? Most of you by the end will be able to write thesis like it's nothing. This is when it gets more specific. Your examples match your thesis and start to support it, right? It has good organization. It doesn't go off into left field because sometimes students will start writing a really good thesis and even their first paragraph is like, oh, that's awesome. And then their second paragraph, I don't know if they read some other prompt or they had like a lapse, they shifted realities. I don't know what happened, but they go off in the opposite direction. So this is if the whole thing is nice and in order. Then you get a 3, right? And so even if it's a little out of whack, one might give you a 2 and the other gives you a 3, that's a 5, right? So you have to think of it that way too. Now 4 is when everything is in order. There's a thesis, it makes sense, everything connects, and you use really good terminology, right? You show that not only do I understand this prompt, not only do I understand how to write, but I got this. This is nothing, right? And so then you can get a 4. And sometimes people will get in between here. And this is what's important for you guys to know. The raters who rate the writing are told to always go in favor of the student. So let's say I have an essay that I'm like, you know, there's some aspects that are a 2, but then there's some aspects that are a 3. The rater is told to give you a 3. So it's in your favor. So there should be no reason that you do not pass the writing portion, right? As long as we hit these. Make sense? Okay. Any questions about that? All right. Okay. Writing in any format can sometimes be daunting. What does daunting mean?
Scary.
Scary, challenging, right? Takes a lot of bravery. Even for the best of writers, it can often be hard to take all the ideas in your head, organize them, and put them coherently on a page. What does coherent mean?
Altogether.
Altogether makes sense, right? Have you ever heard somebody say, well, he was incoherent? That's when they're rambling and you don't know what they're talking about, right? I'm pretty sure you guys look at me like that sometimes, but it's okay. So, Ms. Garcia is really good at writing. I could write something with my eyes closed. I can write a 7-page paper probably within less than an hour with having no background on, right? Writing comes easy to me. However, there are times when I have so many ideas, or maybe I don't know where to start, and my brain's all over the place. Oh, I could write this, I could write that, blah, 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 right? Or maybe I don't even know what to write. Writing is not pretty. The process of writing is not pretty. We always see a nice, beautiful paper, right? Heading, sometimes, most of the time it's typed, and it's beautiful. I promise you that's not how it starts, okay? When Miss Garcia brainstorms, when she starts the writing process, it's all over the place. I throw out sentences, I write on the edges, I'm all over the place. It's not pretty. But it's the end goal, right? You need to figure out the best way for you to get to your end goal. I'm gonna give you a process, but I want you to make that process your own that works for you, okay? So that you can write your best essay. So I just want you to think of this as like a jump off point. These are some of the things Ms. Garcia says it has to have. This is the process I should follow, but how do I make that my own? Make sense? Okay. So to assist you in this task and to help you be successful on the STAAR, you will learn the persuasive writing process. Now, when I say a process means step by step, right? To ensure you get somewhere. I will not allow you to skip steps in the process from now on. Okay, so now that you're about to learn the process, there will always be a breaking down the prompt. You have to show me how you do it every assignment. There's always going to be a brainstorming every assignment, right? Because this is how I want the process to be ingrained in you. Yes? Because once you move past 10th grade, there are no more STAAR writings, essays, or like tests. And they're going to show you how to build the bigger essays. And you'll have the foundation. You'll be like, I got this. I already know this foundation. I just got to add to it. Okay? So, but first, before you begin the writing process, you must understand the format for persuasive writing STAAR essay. STAAR persuasive essay formats has four paragraphs, and you have to do it in 26 lines. So you guys did not take the STAAR last year, so you haven't seen it. But basically what happens is you get it's a sheet of paper with a block. And in that block are lines. There's only 26 lines. You are not allowed to write anywhere outside of the block. And you have to fit your entire essay on those 26 lines. Yes?
Is it less lines than the ones we took in middle school?
I'm not sure. I think it might be the same amount of lines.
Okay,
So, but the requirements are more. So that's the problem. See, you may have had the same amount of lines in middle school and stuff, but the requirements of information were a lot less. Now it's more specific, and it can be very hard. So, for those of you that take it on paper, if you write really big, I suggest you start practicing writing small. Okay? My sis, huh?
Does it have to be a certain amount of sentences?
No.
Okay.
But the process I show you, there are a certain amount of sentences to make sure that you get everything that you need. Okay? So, we start off with an introduction. We have what's called a global academic paragraph, a personal academic paragraph, and a conclusion. Now, right now, these are just words, but I'm literally going to break everything down. And so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So 4 paragraphs, right? Most of us have learned throughout the years that a regular paragraph has an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, right? That's 5. Do I have room for 5 paragraphs on 26 lines?
You do 3 sentences.
Yes. Your paragraphs would have to be like this big, right? So this process, this 4 paragraph process, hits everything that's required on the rubric to try to ensure that you get an 8. Okay?
I don't like essays.
So a lot of people don't like essays. I think essays are great, but you know, that's just it. So,
I tell you again, we're not all like you. We're not smart.
but you will be smart by the end of this. It's going to be a process, and you're going to get it, and you're going to pass.
I don't know. I'm just lazy.
Well, on STAAR day, you're not allowed to be lazy. So you'll eat a good breakfast, and you'll work. And you have 5 hours to do the test. That's the other thing. You have 5 hours. And you might as well use those hours because you do not get to leave after you're done with the test. Right? So if you finish the test within the first 2 hours, you're stuck in that classroom with everybody else for the next 3. It's a 5-hour test.
They give us a people on this school like
Yeah, because of the confidentiality. So with our introduction, it's not going to be big, right? You're normally taught that we have to have a hook and we have to do all the background information. Not with STAAR. STAAR, your introduction, 2 sentences, an acknowledgement and a thesis statement. And I'm going to get into exactly what those are. So that's 2 sentences, right? So we have 2. Okay? The global academic paragraph. You have the debatable topic sentence, What does debatable mean?
Or like somebody else could have a different opinion.
Somebody can argue against it, right? It may not be successfully argued against, but it can still be argued against. That's one sentence. Explanation of sentence one. That's one sentence. Make your case through evidence. That's 3 sentences. Remind your reader of a topic sentence. That's 1 sentence. So that's how many sentences in that one?
6.
6. Okay. Personal academic paragraph. Debatable topic sentence with transition, which is 1 sentence. Explanation of sentence 1, which is a repeat of this. The only difference is now instead of evidence, you're going to make your case through a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. So it's 3 sentences. This happened, then this happened, this is how it ended. I'm not looking for a story that takes up 10 lines, right? You better condense that story, real short. And then remind your reader of the topic sentence. So how many sentences is that? 6. Then you have your conclusion. Again, we've always been taught that there's a whole bunch of information that goes into it, just like your introduction. Now for STAAR. STAAR, you're going to have a linking sentence connecting the 2 examples, an example from here and here, to the thesis. And then a call to action. And we talked about what a call to action is, right? Get up, go do this. But in support of what I'm saying. And that's 1 sentence. So that's 2 sentences. So that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16 sentences. That still gives you a lot of wiggle room, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is that doable?
Yes.
Okay. That's my whole goal, is to make it doable.
Discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to jump.
Oh. Okay. So that's the end of that one. Now we have pre-writing. And the pre-writing is essential to getting all the crazy ideas onto a page, okay? But because that takes up such a good amount of time, I'm gonna leave that portion till tomorrow because I really wanna walk you through it. I'm gonna give you copies of the text. I'm gonna put the text and prompts in OneNote as well so that you'll have them. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to go back over the introduction and I want you to really pay attention to the information. What is some of the critical information you need? You also need to make sure if you have not turned in your annotations for your summative grade, you get that done. And if you're missing anything or have any questions at all about any of the work, that you ask me. Okay, progress reports are coming up. I have to turn it in by tomorrow. So if you are missing anything, you need your grade to be up, you need to let me know and we will work together. Make sense? Yes.
How do you turn in the annotation?
The annotation, just do them and I can see them. Okay? So I'm gonna be nice and not look at them until tonight. So I won't know exactly what time you turned it in or when you finished. So this is your opportunity to say, okay, I'm gonna get it done, okay? And then there will be no excuses because you have had ample time to get it in. Any questions? All right, so go ahead and get that done. And again, ask me any questions if you have any. Yes. Yes.